This is our GOAT, bruh. This is our new GOAT. Bittersweet ending. I don't want to come out here hating, but back-to-back fucking sleepers. And when I'm talking about sleepers, I don't mean it in a good way. This shit had me a little sleepy. Let's get straight into the main event, which was the chess match we were all waiting for. And we finally got it, and it was a little underwhelming. I'm gonna be honest here. It was a little underwhelming. When I was watching it live, it was more entertaining, but then watching it back, dude, that shit had me fucking sleepy, okay? I will say that this shit was a snoozer. I'm gonna give you guys a brief summary of what you guys missed out on. In round one, we pretty much just see Islam go for a takedown. Garry tries his best defending it by calling by the cage side. He's pretty much in a tripod position like half the round. Eventually, he's able to stand on his own 2 feet, but Makhachev's able to hold the body lock and pretty much just hold him there. That's literally what happened that whole round. Garry with the crafty elbows to the forearm. You know, Jan is really changing up the game here. That's pretty much the only exciting things. I will say with the little striking moments they did have out there, I was noticing that Makhachev's inside kicks were not working at all. They were just pretty much shin to shin with Garry. We go into round two, pretty competitive stand-up fight. Not really active though. Eventually both of them collide into a clinch scenario. Makhachev is bringing up the knees, throwing a bunch of knees, while Garry is taking the Dustin Poirier approach with hooks to the body, you know, dirty boxing in the clinch. Eventually, this is the only entertaining part in the fight where Garry disengages from the clinch with his hands down. The dummy has his hands down. He potentially could have won this round, but due to him being very careless defensively, he disengages from the clinch with his hands down, and that shit bites him in the ass. Makhachev frames and then throws a head kick and lands with the feet on Garry's chin, momentarily dropping Garry. It doesn't look as if Garry's out though. He's still conscious, but he's a little shooketh. Garry's evading the shots pouring down from Makhachev, and then Makhachev gets a judo throw, and Makhachev pretty much controls Garry after that. Watching it live, I knew Garry wasn't going to try to get up after that because that was pretty much an insta loss on that round, and Makhachev pretty much locks in round two. We go into round three, and round three is the most competitive part of the fight. In round three, they are having kind of a standoffish moment where they're just probing at each other with their lead hands. Garry throws oblique kicks, body kicks, head kicks, and I believe this is a round where Makhachev tried coming in and he eats a jab from Garry. Eventually, Makhachev tries to go for a takedown, and Garry is actually able to defend it for once. And then we sense the tides are shifting here. Makhachev fans are low-key shivering in their boots. I'm thinking this is the moment where Garry starts, you know, teeing off on Makhachev. No, not really that, but Garry does win that round. He gets a partially blocked head kick. He's throwing spinning heel kicks now. You can sense the confidence oozing off him, which is a good look. And then on the other side, we see Makhachev kind of breathing out of his mouth, looking a little more labored and tired. This is definitely a win for Garry in round three. In my books, it's 2-1 going to round four. And in round four, it's pretty much the same thing. Garry's doing very good on the stand-up. Body kicks, head kicks, a lot of kicks for Garry. And I'm surprised that Makhachev wasn't able to catch either of them, but also Garry was doing a good job chambering in the leg kick after landing it to make it very difficult for Makhachev to catch those. And he was also mixing it up. It was kind of hard for Makhachev to get those reads. But eventually, Makhachev's able to get this takedown, right? And this is the most controversial round here, okay? So pretty much Makhachev is able to go for a takedown. And when I meant he got the takedown, I didn't mean he actually got the takedown. I just mean he was able to initiate the grappling. Garry's able to crawl to the cage, tripod, get back on his own 2 feet, but he's not able to break the grip. And here is where a lot of people will argue. It really just depends on what the judges are looking for out here, because pretty much throughout the rest of the fight, Makhachev did nothing but just hold Garry by the cage. And Garry, on the other hand, he was elbowing the forearms. He was throwing hook shots to the body, and these weren't some light shots. These were pretty thudding shots. And I was surprised because of how tight they were, but he was able to generate enough power to where it's noticeable. Garry was also throwing in some crafty knuckle shots. And by that, I mean like he was just like able to like throw hooks, but instead of landing with the padding of the gloves, he'll throw with his knuckles that were exposed. In hindsight, it looks as if nothing's really happening and this should be a Makhachev round due to the control, but the round ends and guess what? Garry looks pretty much fresh, no damage done to him, and we look at Makhachev, he's looking bloodied up from those little tight hooks to the face, to the body. And then if we look at the stand-up before that, Garry was getting the better in the stand-up with the little activity we seen on the feet. So it's pretty debatable. Either you're gonna give Garry that round due to the damage, or you're gonna give Makhachev that round off control. It really depends on what kind of judge is out there. Nevertheless, We go into round 5 and we see Makhachev's corner very worried. They're talking about how they're not sure on who won that 4th round and pretty much saying that you need to win this 5th round. You need to win it. So we go into the 5th round. Garry doing a good job on the feet, and it looks as if he's going to get this victory low-key. Makhachev is looking a little more labored, but eventually Makhachev is able to go for this takedown. Garry tries to defend it the same way he's been defending it all night, but this time Makhachev is able to beat him to the hip and take him to the ground. Garry once again crawls to the fence. Now we're back again in that body lock scenario that we've been seeing all night. But you get a sense that maybe Garry can potentially break the grip due to Makhachev being kind of gassed out here. But no, Makhachev being the very well experienced champion he is, he's able to get a judo throw again from the clinch scenario by the cage, momentarily dropping Garry. He takes advantage of those little moments and sequences and gets the back of Ian Garry. Eventually locks up a body triangle. That's pretty much all we see. It's GG's. When I was watching the live, I kind of knew it was over. I'm like, damn, I don't think Gary's getting out of it. And I was completely right. He wasn't able to get out. For a split second, I'm like, maybe they can give Garry the round due to Makhachev not doing much. But then towards like the last few seconds of the rounds, Makhachev starts throwing more ground and pounds. Nothing really of significance landing, but just off the visual, it's a good look for him. And yeah, I knew it was over after that. I knew the judges were going to give him that. I'm not sure what the judges scored that fight. I need to check, but I would agree that Makhachev won this round 3-2. Makhachev is now entering the GOAT talks here. His only competition now is really John Jones. I believe he surpassed GSP. He really just needs to win, I believe, 2 more fights just to be certain on shutting down the naysayers out here. Now, who are his next 2 opponents? That's what really has me intrigued here, okay? So if we look at the rankings, so the media rankings has Carlos Prates as number 1, Michael Morales as number 3, and if we could look at the meta rankings, they have Ian Garry at number 1, but Ian Garry just fought, so he's not getting no title shot. We got Carlos Prates at number 2, and then we got Morales at 3. So pretty much it's going to be between Prates and Morales. If it's me deciding here, I'd like to see Morales over Prates. Prates is an entertaining striker, but we've seen time and time again these fighters being able to control Prates, and there's moments where Prates just concedes and doesn't really do much, and he just waits for his openings. In the likes of Leon Edwards taking Prates back, and Prates just, you know, cruises by and doesn't really do much to break the grip. And then we look at JDM. JDM was able to take Prates down. The same JDM that was controlled by Makhachev that whole fight. Now, Prates does have a knockout chance, but I don't know, bro. The way Makhachev fights, it's very likely we're going to see Makhachev be able to control Prates that whole fight and potentially even get a submission here, because Prates doesn't have the same strength in the grappling department, and he doesn't have that same scrambling and wrestling get up ability. So I'm not really keen into making this fight happen, in my personal opinion. But in my personal opinion, I would much rather see Morales, and this is a hit or miss, honestly. We see Morales blitzing and his hips are very open to a potential takedown, but what's really having me intrigued in this matchup is due to the fact that Morales has a significant weight advantage, and we've seen that it's on Makhachev's approach with these welterweight fighters and how difficult it is for him to get these finishes, and he doesn't like being on the stand-up with them especially, so he really has to get control of them and win via decision. What I'm trying to say is these guys have a significant size advantage, if not an even size advantage, to where Makhachev's not really able to weight bully these guys, okay, as he was able to in the lightweight division. And we know Michael Morales has a judo background, and he has been working on his wrestling for a lot, especially coming off that Sean Brady camp and then constantly being on the sidelines ready to take that fight against Makhachev. So we know that he's been ready for this moment. Another thing is he was the backup for this fight, so he did cut weight, which is having me a little concerned because I don't know how much weight cuts Michael Morales has left in the tank before he has to eventually move up to the middleweight division. I don't know what they're going to do. I just say let's match up Prates and Morales. Winner gets to fight is on Makachev. All right? We know Makachev isn't really that active, and he takes his time with these fights. So we might as well just do that, okay? In my prediction video, I really thought Makachev was going to come out here more willing to take risk in the grappling department. But I hate to say it, and I hate to be that guy, Makachev is going to be a blob demon. He's going to be controlling these fighters. If he's not able to take you down, he's going to control you by the fence, and you're going to have to break that grip. Which is why I say we need Morales, because I don't think Prates is breaking those grips. And if he's able to take you down, he's most likely going to just control you and cruise by to a decision. That's what we've been seeing time and time again. He's taken the GSP approach in these matchups now. And we've seen that his skills are able to pay the bills, but I hate to be that guy, but he's a boring fighter. I'm being blunt. The one thing that's really carrying his star power here is him on the brink of GOAT status and constantly breaking records. Makhachev has now broken the Anderson Silva record, and even if he would have lost his fight, I think his record was much more impressive than Anderson Silva's due to his resume, having more tough competition. Moving on to the next fight though, Mackenzie Dern versus Gillian Robertson. Shout out to all the Gooners. They were definitely enjoying this fight. Besides that, this fight was boring as fuck, okay? I hate to be that guy. Damn, 136 strikes? You look at those strike numbers, you'll think, damn, bro, these motherfuckers was throwing some heat. No, it looked like a fucking sparring match. No bullshit. That's what it looked like. Do I really want to break this fight down? Like, I'll be very vague. Round 1, Mackenzie Dern was, of course, piecing up Robertson. Robertson looked clueless on the feet. Dern almost gets a rear naked choke. Robertson has an angle where it alleviates the pressure, but if it was honestly a male UFC fighter, they probably finished their opponent there. I don't want to be that guy, though, okay? I'm not misogynistic. Bruh. All right, move on to round 2. Round 2, Dern was able to get her takedowns there and pretty much control Robertson. They get into leg lock entanglements, but nothing much really happens off that, okay? Move on to round 3. It gets more competitive. Dern is able to get her takedowns. She's able to strike with Robertson. I'm sorry, bro. I'm not going to talk about this fight. Bro, after that, bro, it was just so boring. Round 5 was Robertson's best round and probably the only round where she actually definitively won, because throughout rounds 3 and 4, Dern looked as if she was slowing down a bit, and then the stand-up started looking a lot more close. But like I said, bro, I would say like 30% of those shots landed, and then 70% of those shots, they were dead-ass shadow boxing, bro. They were shadow boxing at range, not really touching each other. That was pretty much the whole fight. I was confident that Dern was going to outstrike and out-grapple her more rounds. I thought she was going to potentially get a finish maybe, you know, off a submission, but no. Dern wins a unanimous decision. I'm telling y'all, Fatima Klein is gonna whoop Dern's ass. Robertson shouldn't have even been in this opportunity, but like I said, the strawweight division is pretty shallow. Besides that, Zhang Weili is out there to potentially take the title shit fight. I don't know what's up with her. We haven't been hearing news about her, so I'm not really mentioning her, but yeah, I would say Fatima Klein is gonna most likely be the next women's strawweight champion. Jalen Turner versus Kaue Fernandes. Very quick fight, and I'm so glad I picked Turner. Fernandes was able to land maybe one calf kick, and then after that, I believe Turner catches one of Fernandes' kicks. Fernandes then tries to throw a spinning back fist. I think it just lands on Turner's shoulder. Turner tries to throw a shot, but eventually lands a left hook, dropping Fernandes bad, and yeah, it's over after that. GG's. Fight was quick as fuck. I'm so glad I didn't pick Fernandes, because if I did, I would have been heated, because y'all, I'm not gonna lie to you. We were struggling in this fight card, okay? We were struggling. We were going out bad. I think we went 7-4. Could have potentially went 8-4 if I had known what the fight was for Charles Johnson, because I would have picked Charles Johnson, but I wasn't sure who he was fighting next. I just knew that the fight was canceled, so I didn't officially pick Johnson in my video. But yeah, we went 7-4. A lot of underdogs won this fight. We move on to Mansur Abdul-Malik versus Dustin Stoltzfus. Dustin was able to take down Mansur Abdul-Malik. He was shown to be the superior grappler, which had me really surprised. Eventually, Abdul-Malik was able to hurt Dustin, and then Dustin was getting very desperate with these takedowns, and Malik was able to defend these. And you see Malik trying to, you know, go for the finish here and rain a lot of ground and pounds. Eventually, Stoltzfus was able to cockroach max his way out of that, and then we start sensing the tides are shifting. These motherfuckers start throwing heavy shots. Eventually, they get into like a clinch scenario where they're like, I believe they're throwing like dirty boxing, knees or whatever. Malik, when they're disengaging from the clinch, Malik is fucking slipping and sliding on semen. Pause.
Yeah, I had to fight some nigga in the bathroom. No homo. We slipping on semen.
And yeah, he falls. Dustin gets like a guillotine attempt. Eventually transitions to the back, gets a rear naked choke. Is GG's after that. Underdog wins. Caught me by surprise. I was down bad at that moment. Edson Barboza versus Esteban Ribovics. Unk had it bad, bro. I felt bad. You could just sense Barboza was trying his best to hang in that fight. And Ribovics was just being a bitch, bro. He was just beating on this man. He was beating the old man's ass throughout that whole fight. Barboza was able to land a spinning back kick at one moment. Besides that, that was his only real highlight. He would occasionally land his jabs, 1-2s, but Ribovics was just eating them like they were pretty much cupcakes and was pretty much putting a pace on Barboza. Barboza was pretty much drowning, and there was even a point where Barboza's shin was just split open, and we see a clear view when the first round ends and they're in their own respective corners. And I looked back on the footage and it was due to an inside low kick and it just hits the knees of Ribovics. And that's the only moment where I see before and after where Barboza's shin starts bleeding. The other thing to mention was towards the end of round 1, Ribovics blitzes in. Nothing really landed of significance. I think Barboza's leg was just compromised and Barboza falls. Ribovics takes advantage, just starts teeing off on him. Round ends. It looks like it's pretty much over though. The fight is pretty much over. All right, we move into round 2 and we see the same thing. Ribovics blitzes in, hurts Barboza. Ref seen enough and just calls the fight. Good stoppage because Barboza pretty much had no fight left in him, and I feel so bad because the UFC is constantly giving these unks that are looking to retire the most difficult matchups where it's damn near all odds are against you, and that's pretty much what we saw. A minus 750 fighter putting a beating on an unk that looks pretty much defenseless and washed. Sad to see. Salutes to Barboza for the retirement fight. You will be missed. Chidi Njokuani versus Joel Alvarez. This is another fight I got wrong, and dude, can you blame me, bro? I did not expect Joel Alvarez to be fighting on the outside, not being active at all, not putting no pace on him. And it was literally a Muay Thai fight. That's the best way to describe it. When I say it's a Muay Thai fight, I mean that tempo and that pace where you go, I go, you go, I go. We take turns. And that's Njokuani's game pretty much. Joel Alvarez was not having no sense of urgency. Njokuani was just at kicking range, just picking apart Joel Alvarez. Whenever Joel Alvarez decided to blitz in, he'll land his boxing, and he was doing good when he did that. But the only issue is that he did not do that often. It was very rare that he would do that. Instead, he decided to just fight on the outside and be very inactive. Eventually, by the third round, where his corner's telling him to, put on a pace and put on that pressure with that boxing. By that time, Joel Alvarez's legs were pretty much compromised due to the inside low kicks and outside kicks from Njokuani, and Alvarez was just sitting duck. He did nothing. Horrible fight IQ from Alvarez, and I'll be very wary picking him on future fights depending on the matchup. But yeah, low fight IQ moment for him. Charles Johnson versus Eduardo Chapolin. Now, he does have that soy build, but this man came out swinging in the first round. I believe he did get an eye poke, and he did throw an illegal knee, which caused him to get a 1-point deduction from the ref. But besides that, the fight was pretty competitive. It wasn't just a one-sided beating. Chapolin did a good job defending the takedowns and then returning his own shots, but he loses that round due to that point deduction. We move on to round 2, and this is where it gets interesting. This is the round where Chaplin is able to drop Charles Johnson. And the sequence of events is where Chaplin throws a 2 and he misses, but he follows it up with a hook and he lands that clean, dropping Charles Johnson bad. Charles Johnson trying his hardest to survive, eating a lot of shots. And then towards the end of round 2, Charles Johnson is able to gather his composure and the tide starts shifting a bit there, but it was already too late. He lost round 2. But we move into round 3, and this is where we see Chaplin significantly start slowing down. He's a lot more plotty. He's not throwing as much shots. He's not as active. He's more defensive. Charles Johnson is looking as if he's vintage Charles Johnson. We saw vintage Charles Johnson pretty much. Mixing it up, going low kick, front kicks, jabs, 2s down the middle. Everything was pretty much a landing. And then we see Chaplin get a little desperate, going for a takedown, trying to survive. Johnson defends it, takes the bag, gets a body lock. Chaplin eventually falls back down to the mat. And then as Chaplin's trying to turn into Charles Johnson locks in a Scottish twister, the second one we've seen in the UFC, and he gets a submission win. So with that being said, welcome Eduardo Chaplin. You are now the future prospect of the flyweight division. You might be a future title contender because we know that Charles Johnson only beats the best of the best in the flyweight division. Charles Johnson looked really good. He looked like vintage Johnson, getting hurt and then coming back and then winning. With that being said, I'm a little concerned, especially if they match him up against a can, because he's going to most likely lose, all right? Donte Johnson versus Eric Mcconico. I told y'all, bro, this guy Johnson was going to look for a finish due to his last fight being a slight stinker. Johnson pretty much threw caution to the wind and just went out there throwing a lot of hooks and a lot of straight punches, being very aggressive. Mcconico was staying very defensively responsible and landing counter shots. And like I said in my previous prediction video, I said all Johnson has to do is stick to the basic and land straight shots. Eventually, he'll find the mark. And that's exactly precisely what he did. He shows Mcconico the lead hand, and then he throws a 2, landing it flush to the chin and pretty much sending Mcconico to the shadow realm. Ref steps in. Ref eats an elbow to the face. He gets rocked. We've seen him getting walked off the UFC cage after the fact. But a good victory from Johnson. We move on to the next fight. Vicente Luque versus Tresean Gore. Very competitive fight in the first round. It looked as if Vicente Luque was switched on, landing a lot of low kicks, a lot of jabs, a lot of good counter shots off Tresean Gore's offense. And I was a little concerned there. I was like, damn, bro. We're about to go 1 for 3 out here. I was really stressing. But eventually Tresean Gore locks in. He starts landing his own shots. He starts getting a feel for Vicente Luque's timing, and now he's getting the better of the stand-up. Gore is able to land a good right hand over the top of Vicente Luque's jab, I believe, and it stuns Vicente Luque for a bit. Vicente Luque now covers up by the cage. Gore is kind of teeing off on him. I give Gore that round based off damage and hurting Luque. We go on to round 2, and we see Luque a little more aggressive. They get into a mini war. They start lashing out at each other, throwing a lot of striking shots at close range, and I'm not sure if Gore got hurt necessarily, but he just kind of falls and then he goes for a takedown mid-fall. Luque, being the submission artist he is, he goes for the Dars and he is squeezing tight. It looks tight and he's squeezing. He's putting a lot of effort into this submission. Gore stays composed, stays patient, eventually gets off and is able to break the grip. And now we see Luque is completely gashed from that little sequence of events. Gore takes advantage, starts raining a lot of ground and pounds, and they are devastating elbows and ground and pounds. Okay, he was not taking it easy on Luque. So I have to give Gore that round based off damage. Once again, we go into round 3. It's a lot more competitive. I can see why they could potentially give Luque that round due to the fact that Gore was now a little more tired and he was pretty much on his bicycle just moving around trying to survive. So I give Gore rounds 1 and 2, so 2-1, and that's pretty much how the fight was scored. Pretty clear victory for Gore. And one thing I will say is Gore did lose a tooth in this fight, so I'm not gonna lie, Unk still got it, bro. Unk still got some lethal strikes in his arsenal, but was not enough to get the victory. Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. Fernando pretty much just styled on Tobias throughout that whole fight, pretty much landing calf kicks at will, front kicks to the body, landing his 1-2. His jab was money all night. Tobias was just stuck in the mud, very plotty. And it wasn't as if he had a clear power advantage here. It was pretty much him just getting pieced up and outworked. I believe he did get a takedown at the end of round 1 off of a kick and Fernando busting his ass. Nothing favoring Tobias in round 1. We go into round 2 and we see the same thing. Tobias is just getting pieced up the whole fight. Fernando is even able to drop Tobias in round 2 off of a jab. And of course he tees off on him. Tobias is able to survive. But we move into round 3 and we start seeing Fernando implement the knees as Tobias is getting more desperate and coming in. And we see that being the money shot. Eventually, all those strikes that Fernando landed to the body finally added up. And Fernando, once again, like I said, intercepts Tobias with a knee down the middle, hurting Tobias bad. And Tobias pretty much concedes. And yeah, fight's over. Fernando, I was shitting on him in my prediction video. I said I'd seen nothing special in him. But hey, not gonna lie, bro. He looked pretty nice out there, especially against Tobias. And it was pretty much looking like a good, decent striker. I'm a little worried for him against good grapplers, but besides that, he has a pretty good future in the light heavyweight division because the light heavyweight division is pretty shallow. Neil Magny versus Ramiz Brahimaj. I got this fight wrong, y'all. This was another fight I got wrong. I was like, damn, Unk has proven me wrong once again. He is still the gatekeeper. I'm surprised. Unk still has some shit in the gas tank. Brahimaj was able to get the takedown against Neil Magny in the first round, but the issue was he was looking for submission throughout that whole round to where he was not able to land any ground and pound, nor was he able to land any strikes of significance to really damage Neil Magny. So it was pretty much just a fresh Neil Magny in round 2. We see Brahimaj try to go for a takedown, and he gets it. Neil Magny is able to reverse it though. And once we see the tide shift and we see that things are not going in Brahimaj's favor, he just folds and quits. The moment he got tired, he just wanted out. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. Neil Magny rains a few ground and pounds, the ref sees enough and calls a fight. You have to still be talented in order to be Magny, and apparently Brahimaj is not that. We move on to the final fight of the night. Like, bro, how was I supposed to know this was gonna happen though? Like, come on, bro, are you serious? Cut me some slack. Jeremiah Wells versus Mike Tibek Orabai. I'm not gonna lie. In round 1, Wells was looking good on the feet. He was landing a lot more heavy shots in comparison to Orabai, which is why Orabai decided to go with the wrestling approach, and he was doing really good. He was able to control Wells. He was able to land ground and pounds. He was able to, you know, threaten a few submissions. And Wells looked pretty clueless on the ground. All right, that's one thing I will say. And it was looking like a clear victory for Metabek Orabai. We're going to round 2. Same thing. Orabai is able to control him. He's able to do more. He's able to look. He looks as if he is the more superior grappler here, and it looks as if he's going to cruise to a decision. We move into round 3. The small sequence of striking is what broke the camel's back pretty much. Wells is able to land a straight shot. Orabai didn't like that. So he takes his time, eventually he goes for the shot. Wells was anticipating that shot and immediately locks up a ninja choke. And yeah, it was wraps after that. It was over. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I was happy because I'm like, dude, we're gonna go 1-0 this night, and no, fuck no. This motherfucker Wells snatched that shit from me immediately, and that smile from my face immediately left and turned into a frown. Cause I'm like, dude, how the fuck does a guy minus 1,300 lose to pretty much a can? And this guy's pushing 40, bro. This is not a good look for Orabai. He looked really good out there, and it looked as if he's gonna get the victory, but Wells was able to snatch up a crafty submission, and Orabai had nothing to answer, and he goes to sleep. We didn't do that good in this fight card, but we did get the Kaue and main event correct. But besides that, these prospects and unranked fighters did put on a show. The only issue is that there's nothing much at stake. Okay, hopefully you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Please subscribe, y'all. You know, we've been stuck at 27. I'm trying to hit 30 soon. Leave a like, subscribe. Peace.